Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to another episode. Number 2 of the day. Well, it's supposed to be 3, but someone cancelled. Number 2, but I'll tell you what, there's one lady who never cancels, and it's the wonderful Beth Penfold. Hello.
Hello, my lovely.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, not too
Good,
bad.
good. How are you enjoying yourself in the sun?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Had to get my sun cream out. Very exciting. We had 22 degrees here in Manchester yesterday.
Gosh, I went out this morning and I really enjoyed it. Listened
Good.
to all the birds and everything, and it was really nice.
Yeah, it's really uplifting, isn't it, all that bird song?
Yeah, oh yes, I listened to all that. Giving doggy biscuits out to all the dogs go by and everything.
Oh, lovely.
So
Bet
it
you're
was really good. Yes. Oh, and the good news, everybody, I'm getting my hair cut. Oh yes, tomorrow. I can't wait. Yeah.
Good.
Oh, after a while, I feel like where's your gummage? Anyway,
Oh.
guys. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Anyway, we are talking about anger, aren't we?
Yeah, I thought it would be fun. I thought it would be fun and frolic to talk about anger. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So, because I thought, oh, I saw a nice picture on the website where I get all my posters to, and I thought, oh, let's have a bit of fun with it. Bung anger on it. So I sent it to you, didn't I? And
Yeah, I saw it. It was great.
yeah. So we all get angry now and again, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And, we're all human. And I'm certainly not suggesting that, we should be all zen all the time, particularly the way things are in the world at the moment. There are a lot of challenging things going on. And anger is a response that, we've been rocking since probably before we were human. Animals display, anger when they attack each other and things like that. So it's certainly an emotion as old as the hills.
Yeah. Everybody's saying hello to you, by the way. We got Sue Sutton on,
Hi,
and
Steve.
we got Kelly on.
Hi,
Got
Kelly.
we got quite a few on. Everybody loves you, Everybody does.
That's great. That's really lovely.
But don't but honor more. So um, but the trouble is, see, with anger, Beth, right, sometimes it's very difficult to kind of like express our anger. Sometimes people, they've got to get to a boiling point, ain't they? Really, and kind of like then they burst it all out. Then, do you find that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share that I had a lot of anger issues, as they call it, in my younger life. I think I've shared on this podcast before that my childhood was full of abuse, and that led to, some difficult years in my teens and 20s. I sort of carried on getting into toxic relationships and things. And I was just so angry. I was just really angry about what had happened to me, essentially. Back then, sort of in the late 80s and the 90s, still people didn't really talk about abuse and trauma and stuff like that. And so you were kind of just still expected to just sort of shut up about it and carry it around, take antidepressants or whatever. I think most of all, I was angry that my abusers had got away with what they'd done. Like, nobody's ever been prosecuted for stuff that they've done to me. And, that I'd have to still live with it. So I'd be in prison for it. It's damaged me for the rest of my life. But they just sailed happily on with minimum impact in their lives. So, yeah, I was rage embodied for about 20 odd years, really. So I was really, really angry. So I mean, in general, anger can show up as kind of shouting, obviously, getting into fights, road rage, ranting, particularly on social media. But it can also show up in quieter ways, like sulking, sort of withdrawal, sending people to Coventry, giving them the silent treatment. Holding grudges is also a form of anger. And more dangerously, self-harm. Self-harm is a way of people turning anger in on themselves. So for me, my anger showed up as being quite a spiky person, really. I wasn't very patient. I didn't trust anybody. I was very quick to get offended and say something really nasty in return. I was quite, I was quite mean. I would say things that would hurt other people's feelings, which obviously I'm ashamed of, but I was ashamed of. And really, it was because I was just on the alert for a possible attack sort of thing all the time. That alert energy, I mean, I guess the upside of it was that it made me a very interesting person to be around. I was quite quick thinking, I was quite witty, I was often the life and soul of the party. But that was just the lighter side, really, of a very dark emotion that was consuming me, really, right up through my 20s and 30s. I was often argumentative at work. I went through quite a few jobs because I couldn't get on with the boss, particularly if it was a man.
Oh, right.
Argumentative. I'd blame people. I would put people down. I was a total arse, basically, for quite some time. I was mad, bad, and dangerous to know, but not in a cool way. So yeah, that's basically how it showed up for me.
Yes. Is that because of Is that because of the past that's brought it up? Because at one time you was telling me about alcohol and everything. You were kind of trying to hide away from all the fears. So you took alcohol and everything. Does that and you must have felt a lot of guilt. Do you feel a lot of hurt at the moment where you kind of
No, I mean,
feel
I don't feel any of these emotions now because I've resolved all of it. And obviously I'm sharing this because I'd like to get the message out there that it's possible to move on from these feelings. Like whatever horrible experiences you may have been through, it's possible to feel happy and content and joyful and full of trust again, and calm. I don't have anger now. Because I'm going to share later on some tips for managing it.
Right, okay.
But yeah, like I've been really lucky. I learned neuro-linguistic programming, and I've been able to let go of all that historic anger. There's a difference between like some driver that's been a bit of a pig and just sort of irks you a bit, and the historical anger and injustice of sort of abuse or trauma that's happened. And it just sort of clogs up and it stays there, and you keep being dragged back to it, and you're thinking about it as if it were now, and you're reliving things and things that happen subsequently in a life. If they feel familiar, if they feel like the thing that happened in the past, all of those feelings come back, and it's just a terrible hell for people to have to live in. So for some people, though, anger kind of works because it gets them what they want, a bit like a child throwing a tantrum. I think to some degree, because I'm a feminist, Steve. I think to some degree the patriarchy kind of hails aggressive men. They're kind of alpha dogs. They're kind of seen as successful and go-getting and that sort of thing. But a lot of that is anger, and also it's a double-edged sword for men because men aren't really allowed under the patriarchy to express the full gamut of emotions they feel. I think many of them aren't even allowed to admit that they feel, certain emotions, but anger is one of the things that men are allowed to express. And I think it's unfair to men because they're often stuck with kind of that, really. That's the channel for their unhappiness, whatever, it's coming out as anger. But it's basically a waste of energy. It's not good for humanity. It's not good for the people we know and love. And it's not good for us. So I'm going to give you 3 reasons why we should try and get a hold on our anger. So the first one is obviously it poisons our relationships, whether that be with work colleagues or our family, friends, our partner. It's just really stressful to be arguing and shouting about things all the time, and it can be a common culprit in destroying relationships completely. yeah, you can get feuds, can't you? You can get family feuds that last for years or even generations. So, it really, it's a poison that lasts. It's a poison that seeps in and seeps between people, and really causes problems. It's actually bad for your physical health, particularly for your heart, particularly for men. It's really bad for your heart. It weakens your immune system. All that cortisol.
Are you trying to say that us men haven't got an art?
You've got really big hearts. That's why it's such a problem for you.
Thanks. You sound like you're a feminist.
It can increase mental health problems, so it can exacerbate those things. It can cause pain in your body. A lot of people, again, particularly women, but men too, they turn their anger in on themselves, and they end up with kind of, just pain, like sort of muscle pain and spasms and all sorts of stuff going on, and that can often be the emotion of anger that's not been dealt with. It increases your chance of having a stroke. And in the US, they did a 17-year study on couples and found that couples that sort of hold their anger in and just sit there seething and resentful, it affected their lifespan detrimentally compared to couples who were able to manage their anger healthily within the relationship. So it's bad for your health. And the other thing is that it brings trouble to your door, right? Because quite apart from sort of uncontrolled anger causing problems with like your neighbors or your colleagues or whatever, neuroscience has recently found that anger actually attracts the anger of other people, right? So this is neuroscience. I so wish I'd been a neuroscientist. In fact, maybe I'll just take another degree, because neuroscience at the moment, they're finding so many exciting new discoveries about the brain. It must be like you go to work on a Monday and it's like, oh, and there's this, right? And then Tuesday it's like, and there's this, and there's this. It must be like, oh. So anyway, I love keeping
up. We should make a video of you doing that. I stick it on YouTube.
What would that achieve?
We should stick you on a sacred womble.
But anyway, it's really cool, and it's basically that our unconscious mind is obviously still running these primeval behaviors, as I mentioned before, and we are constantly unconsciously reading each other's body language. We're still doing that, and because we're doing it, we can pick up people's anger, right? And other people that have got anger think, oh, there's a legitimate outlet for my anger, basically, right? So if you're generally a person that experiences a lot of anger in their life, in yourself, you can be walking along the street minding your own business and someone will suddenly have a go at you and you'll be like, where did that come from? But it's basically one unconscious mind noticing a potential threat from another animal. If they're detecting anger coming off you, then they will often attack first to prevent them being attacked. Fascinating, but there you go. I mean, how are you with anger then, Steve?
I was just about to mention it. I was just about to mention it. When I was younger, I had what you call I was kind of like left out. I was left out of the family. It was like I had two other brothers and one sister, and all of them used to get away with it, and I used to get all the brunt of it. And when I was around about 9, I took all my anger out and kind of like I got my own back on everybody. And the trouble is, to me, when I get angry, it takes me a long time to get angry.
Right.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? So instead of chucking things around or getting in a tip, what I do, I just go out of the room now. If I deal with anger, I'll go in somewhere, lock the door, then I kind of like deal with it in my, in my space. I don't deal with it with other people around, especially my wife, because my wife, it's not. She's been through a lot of stuff in the past, abuse and everything, so she doesn't want to see the anger that's coming from, from that. So we, I do get angry, I do get angry when
we all do. There's no point, don't we? We all do. Yeah, we're just human. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got, I get angry, nearly every day when I'm doing this. I do, honestly, when people contact me and they go, what time am I on? Or, okay, And what they do is about 5 minutes, 5 minutes before they come on, they go, "Oh, can I cancel?"
5 minutes before.
Yeah.
Crikey.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it's you got to book in here with StreamYard. You got to book it in, see the time and everything.
Yeah.
But see, yeah, but anyway, but when I was around about 16, 17, I turned to alcohol
Mm,
because I was abused, when I was younger.
mm,
And the trouble is, sexually abused, by the way. And
yeah.
um, and the trouble is, what I felt was that I kind of I was really hurt, and the only thing worse for me was turning to alcohol and drink because it blotted it out. But the trouble was, so it didn't block it out, all the time. It was like in the morning, I had a headache, and the
Yeah.
problem was still there.
Yeah, I totally resonate with you, Steve. I was exactly the same. I used to drink, and of course, when you've got depression, it is a depressant, alcohol. So it was absolutely the worst thing I could have done, and it did make me more angry. I used to get, at the very least morose when I got drunk, and I'd often fly into a rage, and I'd just pick a fight with anyone, and I'd just go on and on and on until because suddenly I had an outlet for it, which felt authentic at the time. Because obviously being drunk, I just couldn't make reasonable decisions, but it just felt okay at the time. And then obviously I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have the headache and I'd go, oh my God, I'm sure I said such and such to somebody,
Yeah,
and
you regret it, don't you?
it
You
all comes
regret it.
back to me
Yeah,
like, oh my God.
yeah,
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 and then there's a long round of sort of, apologies and trying to make things right, and
yeah, yeah,
and I lost friends because of it, because people were just like, do you know what? I don't need this hassle. I don't need this from you, Beth. Forget it. So,
yeah, yeah.
it's a real shame. But can I just ask, just out of interest, were you the oldest of four, or where were you in the family?
So my brother, he's around about, oh gosh, he's about 58. So I was the third one.
The,
Then
the
my
third.
sister.
All right, so
Yeah,
the second, so almost the youngest. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was just interested because I got scapegoated for everything as well. Like I was one of four too,
Yeah,
and for some reason, whatever happened and whoever did it, it was always my fault.
yeah, yeah. It's always my fault. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
there were very long, convoluted reasons why that was that I could never really fathom. But anyway, it was always my fault.
yeah.
Um,
I was. I don't know. I was kind of like somehow I felt. I know it's horrible to say, but I felt that I was never belonged.
yeah,
I was just left out. I was just getting blamed for kind of like all sorts of stuff, and I just kind of like. And when I was 16, I just left home. I just left home, and I
go out
remember,
there as soon as possible. Yeah.
yeah, I moved into a bed sit, and it was like a shock. It was a complete shock.
Mm.
Because I didn't know what I was doing. You know what I mean? I haven't got a clue, and it was really tough. But I learnt for it. But the trouble is, when I going through all that alcohol, I had to go to I remember going to like an alcohol unit for around
Yeah.
about 3 months. I was in there for 3 months,
Mm.
and you're talking with other people, and they used to say to me, "Well, you're young. Why do you want to go on? Why are you drinking and all that sort?" And
Mm.
I can understand what they were trying to say to me. And it was rough. But you get through it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
spoils people's relationships, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it kind of, and for people like us, because when you've been abused, you're damaged through absolutely no fault of your own, and it just makes our lives even worse. Adding
Mm.
alcohol, and it's another sort of enemy that we have to defeat in order to feel okay again. So yeah, it's really hard. And of course, again, back in those days when we were young, people didn't really get all this. They didn't really understand about the terrible trauma of childhood abuse and things. So yeah. But anyway,
Because
so
it was hushed, wasn't it? Back
it
then,
was,
it was
yeah. I
sexual
came from
abuse. Everything was hushed.
an Irish Catholic background, and I went to a convent school. You know,
Did you?
yeah, yeah. Very, very strict convent school. We weren't allowed to wear patent leather shoes in case it reflected up our skirts and showed what colour knickers we had on, Steve. That's basically how strict the Irish nuns were. Yeah. So,
Sorry.
eh?
Sorry. Right,
You're
okay, yeah,
cracking up.
move on. Time to move on.
I can't see you at the moment, so I don't know what you're doing. I can only see me, which is a bit
No,
distant.
no, I'm just no, I'll just put the screen on to watch you fully. So
Oh, okay, fine. Right. So anyway, oh, there you are. That's better. Right. Okay. So obviously, for various reasons, we do need to try and manage our anger more healthily. So the first tip is to breathe, right? And you'll get people talking about breathing more and more on these sorts of self-help things because, again, we're just discovering more and more about the capabilities of the body, and breath is just so not about, oxygenating the body. So essentially, what you can do, I'm going to do it now, right? Is if I get angry, what I do is I take in a massive breath and then I breathe out completely until I just literally can't breathe anymore. So totally empty my lungs out, right? So I'm going to do it now. You ready? Right? Stop it. Right. And what that does is, right, it stimulates your frontal cortex here, and you get a lovely kind of little tingly, calming thing going on here, right? And it's the same as a calm state. So it's basically once you've done that, you're not feeling that anger anymore. You're literally feeling a calm state across your brow. So it literally soothes a troubled brow. So definitely recommend practicing that. Don't do it on camera like me, but practice that in the comfort of your own homes, people. It really does. You will notice that effect there.
yeah.
Okay, so
Getting back to anger for a second,
yeah.
because you got children, how do
Mm.
you cope with it when you must get angry sometimes with your children, if they are playing up or what, how do you cope with that?
Yeah, I can't speak to this too much because what happened when I had kids was, first of all, I was absolutely certain that I wasn't going to be like my parents had been with me. So that was like the thing that guided every bit of parenting I did. So my parents shouted at me and hit me all the time, right?
Mm.
So that absolutely wasn't going to be happening. So I didn't want to be a shouty mum, and in fact, when I had my first one, I was so depressed that I just literally didn't even have the energy to shout. So I ended up completely by accident. I'm not brilliant at parenting by any means necessarily, but it's just I just spoke quietly to them, and when they didn't do something straight away, I just keep repeating it in a slightly annoying way until they did it. And I've ended up with a household where nobody really shouts because they model you, don't they, kids? They model what you do.
Yeah.
So they do go on and on, and they do keep persisting to get what they want. But we don't really do raised voices and things because I just simply didn't have the energy when they were little to do
Right,
that.
okay.
And if anything, my parenting is possibly a bit on the soft side because I was determined not to sort of abuse them. So the one thing they definitely have is they feel unconditionally loved. But I think sometimes I maybe need to work a little bit harder on the tough love bit, the holding firm boundaries bit. So
Yeah.
we
Do
can
you
talk about
tend to
that.
spoil them?
I probably do. It doesn't feel like that because it's not like I buy them expensive stuff or anything. But we do things like, I buy them chocolate bars and stuff if they've had a good day at school or got good grades on their tests or, something like that. I'll make a fuss of them. And, I'm always bigging up the positives and helping them work through negatives so they don't sort of like feel too much shame or, they just learn from it. They just learn from it and move on kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my 17-year-old now has totally got that. She said to me something like the other day, like she said, oh no, mummy, I never beat myself up. I look at myself in the mirror and go, well, you made a mess of that. Moving on. And that's it. She just does that. She just acknowledges it and then
Is she a teenager then, is she?
She's 17, yeah.
17,
yeah. So,
yeah.
okay, so tip one was breathe. Tip two is to do something with the energy, because anger is an energy, and it rises up, doesn't it? And you feel like it's got to come out. It's like a volcano, and if it's like a hose gushing water, turn that hose away from the person and water some plants instead. So do something a bit more useful, so obviously exercise, running, walking, etc. Dancing, if you feel you can do that. The same 17-year-old, she does something called rage baking. So if she gets annoyed with everybody, she goes and bakes brownies, and she slams around in the kitchen, but 45 minutes later, there's some nice brownies for everyone to eat, and we make a pot of tea and chill. So rage baking is something she invented, and I recommend it highly.
You must get her angry every day for a brownie.
Of course I get her angry every day. I'm her mum, and she's a teenager. That's how it works. But anyway, either that or I embarrass her in some way. But anyway, okay. So find something to do. Either something calming or often something active is really quite useful to just help that energy move through you. And then you can combine that with tip 3, really, which is just get out of there. I mean, that's what you said, Steve, is going to another room, get out of there physically. So go out for a walk if you can, get out in the fresh air, because it'll change your perspective. You'll have new incoming things into your eyes, and it'll just get you thinking differently. It'll distract you. And if you can't get out of the situation physically, you can always go somewhere else in your mind. So, I mean, if you're able to think of a joke or a happy holiday memory or something like that, but that might be a bit too much of a leap from feeling angry. But often thinking something boring or a bit stressful, like my next mortgage payment is coming up on Monday, something a bit, it just brings the anger down a little bit, just thinking things like that. Number 4 is to write it down. What is it that's causing your anger? Can you put it in a sentence? Right, and this makes 2 really useful things happen. So firstly, in order to do an intellectual task like analysing and writing down the reasons for your anger, you're having to switch back to your conscious thinking mind. And this will automatically take your anger down a couple of notches. And secondly, part of your anger might have been that the other person, say you're arguing with a person, didn't seem to understand your point of view, but now you've written it down, you might have a better sense of it in your mind. And if all else fails, you can pretty much show them what you've written. You can communicate clearly with them. And that in itself might help to make the problem go away. And it allows you to feel calmer, because at least you feel heard. It might be read, they've literally read the sentence.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And most importantly of all, right, number 5 is look for the emotion behind the emotion. Okay. Now, it's acknowledged in all psychiatric circles that anger is what's called a secondary emotion. Right. So basically, in our minds, we have kind of 2 emotions. Before as we developed into humans, we basically had pleasure and pain like animals. Right. And that's now kind of evolved into pleasure is kind of love, and pain is kind of fear. Right, so we've kind of got love and fear that, you can pretty much whittle any action, any human action down to those 2 motivations, right? So this was the key, understanding this was the key to me recovering from my anger, because when I looked behind it, I realized that my 2 emotions behind it were fear and resentment. I felt deeply resentful about the bad things that had been done to me and no one being punished. And I also felt a huge fear that if I'd been badly treated multiple times, what was to stop another attack happening at any time? So I was constantly, lightning has struck me twice, much more than twice. So obviously I'm going to be on the alert for an attack all the time. So fear often presents as anger in the animal world. So anyone who owns a dog or a cat will tell you that, an animal that's kind of snarling or whatever, it's feeling attacked. It's kind of feeling fear. Yeah. So for me, understanding the root cause of my anger made a huge difference for me. I'd labelled myself, and I'd been labelled by others, as an angry person, or more commonly, aggressive defensive. That's what I was called. And I thought that was part of who I was. I just thought I was kind of stuck like that. I didn't realise that because I was so afraid of a further attack at any time, I would basically attack first to ward people off. So that was what my anger was doing for me. It was trying to protect me. Yeah. Because this is the funny thing is, sometimes we do all sorts of stupid behaviours, but there's a good intent there. I was just trying to keep myself safe. But obviously, I'd chosen something that wasn't a sort of socially responsible, healthy mechanism for keeping myself safe. So I was able to understand the motivations behind the anger and start to work on those. So once I understood I was acting out of fear, my behaviour suddenly made sense. And I was able to let go of that fear and resentment over time. Took a lot of time and a lot of therapy, a lot of NLP, but I have been able to let that go. So, and I'm really grateful.
What are you liking today with relationships? And do you
Well,
feel well? It's like if you're in a relationship with somebody, do you kind of like attempt to back off what you've been through? Trust anybody again?
well, I couldn't trust people for a long time. So I'm just now actually, and I don't know if I've said, but I'm actually in the process of getting divorced at the moment. That was a 25-year relationship, and my partner there wasn't abusive in any way, but kind of my damage sort of soured things, was toxic for that relationship, and I have to take responsibility for that. And also he had anxiety that he wasn't managing. So yeah, we spent a long time going to relate and things like that. We tried and tried, but after 25 years, we called it a day a couple of years ago. So we're still going through that. So
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it now. When you're talking about all the hurt and everything, like you've been through all that about marriage and everything, and if you go into if you are or whatever into another relationship, are you kind of like a person who tends to kind of like say, hang on for a second, I've got to be careful, what I'm doing because I've been hurt so many times.
Yeah, and I think I'm honest with him about that. I sort of explain that I mean, a lot of the behaviours I simply don't run anymore, but there's still probably a couple of things where I go, sorry, I'm making a thing out of this because it just reminds me of blah blah blah, or it triggers this and that,
Yeah.
And I reassure him that I'm working on those things because there's no need for those things to be around forever. But obviously, you can only work at one thing at a time, and we're always developing ourselves and growing, aren't we? We're always moving forward.
Yeah.
So, and there's always work to do.
It's because when you're in like a new relationship with somebody, it kind of like it really kind of sometimes it can be hurtful because because you got all this guilt and you got all the problems inside you. You could pass it on to the person who you're in the relationship. You know what I'm
Yeah.
getting at?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm always very upfront with people right from the get go. I mean, I'm talking about this sort of stuff on a podcast. I'm quite happy to let some poor bloke who stumbles into my life know what he's letting himself in for. But I also say that I've healed. I've done the work, and basically a lot of it just doesn't come up for me anymore. I never thought I'd be able to trust men again, but in the last couple of years, I've now got quite a few male friends. I really enjoy their company, and I don't find them threatening. And obviously, I took some time out between saying I wanted a divorce and starting to date other people, because there's lessons to be learned, there's processing to be done, and I made sure I did some of that. I got a bit of coaching for myself to make sure that I kind of draw a line. I forgive myself for my less optimal behaviors. I forgive my partner, and apologize to my partner for whatever I've done, and just kind of let all that go and go, okay, but how do I want to do it differently? And did a bit of work around that. So yeah, so far, yeah, it's all good.
Thank you very much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure as always.
Thank you. Sometimes in life, everybody, we do go through some toxic relationships or we friendships. It could be anything in life. But the trouble is, what you've got to learn is that sometimes we need to move on. We can't kind of like stay there, sit down, and kind of like think about what's going to happen next. We got to move on, and if we don't move on with all the problems that we got and all the hurt that we got, we're never gonna get. We never know what life is gonna be. So if you're listening now and you're thinking, or you're watching, you're thinking, oh, that's not me. I can't move on. Well, you can. Look at Beth. Look at me. Look at everybody else. And that's why I do all this. I don't do it for everything. I do it because people are listening, people are watching, and it can help them. And and so far we have helped quite a lot of people, and we will keep going until we help more. And that's my promise to everybody out there. So, good afternoon, everyone. I will see you later on. I'm going to go and have my tea, and it's, it's smelling nice out there. And in the meantime, I'll say bye bye. Bye bye, Beth. Thank
All
you
right,
so
bye bye.
much.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.